Welcome, welcome. We're still seeing a lot of people streaming in. We're so glad you can be with us today. This is another episode of Discovery Adventures with the Field Museum. My name is Anna, and I'm going to be facilitating today. I am at home in my apartment, but we have Jeff Schroeder, who is in the Field Museum, who's going to be our host. But just some quick housekeeping notes. Whether you are joining us on Zoom or on YouTube, we are so happy you have joined us today. And if you are on our Zoom, you're going to be able to use some of our interactive features. I see somebody's already found the chat. Thank you, Robin. We do have the chat. So if we ask you a question, feel free to answer in that chat so we can see what you're thinking. We also have the Q&A. So if you have any questions for us throughout the presentation, definitely put those questions in the Q&A and we'll try to answer as many as we can. And if you're on the YouTube, we also are really excited you're there too. But you're not going to be able to do those things, but we're going to have the questions for our polls written on slides so you can see those and engage with those as well with your thoughtful thoughts. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Jeff, who is very excited for Groundhog's Day and to see all sorts of thrilling North American animals.
Yes.
Hello, Jeff in the Field Museum.
Thanks, Anna. Hey, everyone. Yeah, happy Groundhog Day. I've got my shirt on, and we're going to talk about all sorts of North American mammals, not just the groundhog, but we will have a little feature on this critter at the end. So right now, I am starting out with one of our Field Museum's dioramas, and we'll be visiting a few of those today. But these dioramas are absolutely beautiful. It's a little hard to see this one. It's a little bit faded in this glass, but you can get an idea. It shows the animals in realistic poses, maybe fighting or standing up looking around or resting their heads on one another over there. And it also has that background. So it really gives you an idea painted there of what it might look like. It's almost like I'm here with these creatures, these musk oxen. So the dioramas are a really great way to learn more about animals. And today we're going to use them to learn about mammals. So what is a mammal? If anyone would like to go ahead and chat a feature you think makes an animal a mammal, feel free to put it in the chat, and Anna can share with me a few of your responses. So what is a mammal? What kinds of things does it do? What kinds of features does it have? What does it look like? What would make you think that's a mammal?
Yeah, so Oliver said that mammals have fur, and Nathan said they have fur and are warm-blooded. Walter also said warm-blooded. They've talked about milk, hair, fur, warm-blooded, doesn't lay eggs, gives birth to live young. Those are some of the things I've been seeing coming through the chat.
Oh yeah, people are all over this. That's awesome. Right, so a couple of major characteristics of mammals are that they have hair or fur of some kind, and they provide milk to their babies. Now the egg one is a little tricky. There's upcoming Discovery Adventures where we'll talk more about that. There actually are two kinds of mammals that do lay eggs, but for the most part, that's a pretty good way to tell, is that they give live birth. All right, so I think we have a pretty good idea of mammals. Now let's talk about these in particular. So behind me, we've got these musk oxen. And I want to start by talking about North American mammals in their habitats. So I want everyone to take a look. You can see very well behind me. And put in the chat, what type of habitat do these musk oxen live in? What do you notice maybe on the ground there or in the background? Look and see if there's many trees or not trees. What are some observations you make?
There's been some ideas. We've had, some people think it looks like a desert or rocks or maybe even sand. We've seen tundra and mountains, plains. Somebody's noticing the grass.
Great, lots of good observations. Absolutely, it is kind of wide open, so it's tough to tell. Is it like scrubland? Is it the desert? And I know it's a little hard to see, but on the ground here, that's some snow. So that's a hint there that we're in a cold climate. And another hint is these musk oxen's fur. Look at that fur, it looks really thick, right? So again, animals have those adaptations oftentimes to a certain habitat or environment they live in. And these musk oxen are no exception. They've got really thick fur. Some fur on the outside like guard hairs, and then they've got the under fur, which keeps them super warm, just like our coats. If we're in the cold, you've got the outside layer and the inside layer with the fluff. So, right, observing an animal's habitat, like these musk oxen, is a great way to learn more about the animal itself. And it's a great way to connect to some of those adaptations. So Anna, I've got a couple more things to show people. Did anyone have a question yet?
There was a few people asking, you mentioned that they might fight. They want to know what they might be fighting about.
Yeah, good question. I moved aside for a moment here. Let me go on this side then, so you can still see me. These two musk oxen look like they're fighting, right? But it's a little hard to tell. They're not quite as big as the big bull up here. So those two are actually young males, and they are fighting kind of just to practice. So sometimes the younger ones will kind of fight and kind of joust around to learn how to do that. Then when they get to be older, and it's the musk oxen that might be the leader of the herd, then they can fight with other males or females. So some animals do that. These two just kind of playing right now. Good question.
One other question about the musk oxen. Do you know what they eat?
Yeah. So they eat plants and they'll eat what they can find. So if you can also see, there's not a lot of plants here, right? I don't see a lot of trees. And what I can see on the ground, which you might have a little trouble seeing, it looks like grass. It's actually like mosses and lichens, which are kind of like a fungus type mixed with a plant almost. So mosses and lichens. And those are little things that grow in these colder climates, and these animals can eat them. So they use their horns and they snip through the ground. They get under the snow and they eat these. So there's not a lot around to eat in the tundra in these cold areas, but that's what they find. Awesome. Well, I'm going to show a couple more animals here because we're talking about adaptations, right, in the fur. So I'm going to show off a couple more animals that have some really thick fur because I love to hold these furs. These are study skins. So these are animals that have died and then been preserved, just their skin and fur. And it's kind of like a pelt. It gives you an idea. I'm going to try to get it past the light. There we go. Sorry. A little easier to back up, I think. We're going to show it here. There we go. And I see some comments already that some people might have an idea of what this is.
Yeah, a couple people seem to have already guessed it correctly. And other people are guessing in the same family. So there's a lot of guesses for different types of big cats, and it is a big cat. And a number of people have guessed the correct big cat. It seems to live in a cold environment, just like those musk oxen.
Yeah, it does, because you can look, it's got this really thick fur, and it's actually got fur on the bottoms of its feet to help it get traction and probably keeps them warm too, I'd say. So it is a type of cat. A lot of people are saying that, and you can see it's got the spots, very long legs. What you can't see very well, it would have tufts on its ears, and then it has this little, I was kind of showing that little tiny tail is in it too. So a type of cat that lives in cold climates with a tiny tail, this is a lynx. So this is a beautiful lynx pelt, and I can feel, I wish I could let everyone feel how soft that is. Now there's another type of animal here that uses its fur to stay warm, but this one even uses it to stay dry. So I'm going to hold this up, try to give a good idea of it. It's long. I see a long, kind of slender tail. Almost looks like a big weasel, but then I feel this fur, and it feels super soft, and I feel like an outer layer that might keep it dry, but an inner layer, if I can get up really close here. Sorry, inner layer, there we go. That's going to keep it nice and warm. Anyone have ideas about it?
There's been a lot of ideas we have seen, and I think that sounds like it's a waterproof coat, and a lot of people have been saying otter, which seems a very good adaptation for an otter.
Yes. I love the way people are thinking. Yes, waterproof is a wonderful adaptation for an otter. And this is indeed a river otter, North American river otter. So lynx, otters, musk oxen all have adaptations, especially in their fur that keeps them warm. They're also all animals that live in North America. And they're all mammals too, as you can see from the fur. Great. Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to move to a new area so we can talk a little bit about horns and antlers. And Anna, as I'm moving, feel free if there's questions to answer or if there's a mystery kind of animal there to put up on the slide.
Yeah. I'm going to try to answer some of these different questions that we've been getting. One of the questions was, did you kill the animals to have their fur? And that is a great question. So in the museum, we have been getting animals for a really long time. The museum is over 125 years old. So a long time ago, especially, people would go out into the wilderness and they would hunt animals to bring them back for science so that we could learn more about them. Today, a lot of the animals that we get actually come after they die in zoos, aquariums. Sometimes they might be hit by cars. They could be collected by wildlife departments, or some birds that hit windows in Chicago and they get donated to the museum. The most important thing is all of our animals, when we collect them, they're collected in ethical and sustainable ways because we would never want to hurt the wild populations. And we do want to make sure they're in a museum so that we can still learn about them and help protect their counterparts in the wild. So that's always a really important question. And it looks like now we're looking at some moose.
Yeah, let's see, how are the moose looking there? There we go. Yeah, we have some moose behind me. So this is a great opportunity to talk about horns and antlers. So take a look at these moose. They've got some pretty impressive headpieces here. Are they horns? Are they antlers? Feel free to chat what you think while I talk a little bit about the difference between horns and antlers. Got two things down here.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of votes for antlers.
Antlers, all right. Yeah, they are antlers on these moose. They're huge antlers, but those are indeed antlers. So we've got an antler and a horn here. I want everyone to take a look out there, and what are some differences you notice between a horn and an antler? They seem to have branches. I'm looking at the number. Let's see. I have a real horn and a real antler here. Oh, I see people saying horns have 1 point and antlers have 2 or 3.
Yeah, antler has more branches. That's a really good observation. Horn only has 1 point.
Okay. Horns are more sharp. Lots of good answers.
And somebody said antlers grow back. That's another really good thing to know.
Oh, good, yeah, good call. Absolutely. So antlers, every year something happens to antlers. If anyone out there, I don't know if we have the raise hand feature, but feel free to let us know just with a Y in the chat if you've ever found an antler on the ground, because antlers shed every year and sometimes you can find them. And then the animal will grow back the antlers the next year. So these moose will actually shed those gigantic antlers and grow them back. This is from a white-tailed deer. It's the Illinois state animal, and it is also an animal that has antlers. That deer will grow them and then shed them every year. Now, this other thing is from a goat and from a ram goat. So it has a horn, and this is a little different. You notice I could take that top part off. So antlers are made of bone. Now the underside, get that, sorry, it's a little hard to see. The underside of a horn is also bone. It has a bone core. The top that goes over it and grows over it is made of the same thing as my fingernails tapping in here, keratin. So that's a little bit different as far as horns and antlers. And so horns also don't grow back. They will just grow that keratin sheath over the years, but they're not shed. Now, Anna, did we have any questions about our moose or our horns or antlers?
We have one very persistent question about the moose. Do they eat pumpkins?
Do they eat pumpkins? That's a good question. I don't know for sure the answer to that, but I would venture a guess as to probably if they were hungry and they didn't have much else to eat. You can see in the diorama, the moose are grazing on some plants. I know they like to eat water plants, but I also know pumpkin is a gourd. It's a plant, so they might try it. I don't know. If anyone lives in an area where there are moose, maybe you've seen or heard of that.
Yeah, and I know zoos give a lot of animals pumpkins in the fall because they're, I think, really safe for a lot of animals. So most animals seem to enjoy them. People wanted to know, can a moose kill a human, and why are their antlers so big?
Yeah, so 2 parts to that question. Yes, a moose could potentially kill a human. You don't want to mess with moose, especially if it's like mating season. They could be aggressive. I know that they will chase people and they can be aggressive. They're very, very big, as you can tell. I don't think it happens often that a moose kills a human, but it could potentially happen. You don't want to agitate them. But yeah, those antlers, again, are going to be used sometimes to fight over a female, but oftentimes just for show. So a lot of animals with those really big antlers, the males have the huge ones just to kind of show off to the females.
Yeah. There's a lot of questions about what moose eat. Do they eat meat? Do they eat small animals? Do they like berries, strawberries? Those are some of the food questions we've been getting.
Yeah, so moose, they'll eat different types of plants. I don't know if Marcy has a little help on that one, like if there's anything about our moose info, but yeah, they do eat plants. As you can see in our diorama, this moose is grazing on some leaves. They eat tender leaves and plants. They browse on the plants. I know they eat some water plants, so there's oftentimes pictures of moose in the water eating. So yeah, they are plant eaters. Now, I have heard that white-tailed deer, if they're really, really hungry in the winter, will eat mice. And so I don't know if a moose would pick up a mouse and eat the mouse or not, but I don't think it would give it much nutrition.
That makes a lot of sense. Somebody was asking about like female moose, like if there are, I think there's some confusion about the antlers and whether they're on males or females and why that is.
Yeah, there we have some females. So you can see the male versus the female, and those females don't have antlers. So I know with like reindeer or caribou, the female do. Now these moose, the female don't have antlers, and the males, again, they have those so they can fight over the females to get a mate or to show off to the females.
Yeah.
All right. Anna, I am going to head to our next stop so we can see a couple more dioramas here.
All right, while you do that, I'm going to share a screen. Now that we've talked a little bit about antlers and horns, let me share a screen. We're going to take a look at some really cool creatures that are also in the museum. Let me put it in present. There we go. All right, so this is a pronghorn is the name of the animal. And I'm wondering, if you look at what's on their heads, do you think those are horns or antlers based off of what we just learned about the differences between horns and antlers? What do you think? You can type your answers into the chat. We do see some horns, some antlers, some that I am not sure. Oh, I will exit out of my image download so you can see better. Thank you. Horns, maybe. Yeah, they are pretty tricky. So this is an animal that lives in the American Southwest. So if you've ever heard the song Home on the Range, where they talk about where the deer and the antelope play, this is the animal they're usually talking about, although they are different from antelopes that live in Africa. And it looks like Jeff is back up hanging out with some bears. Do you want to reveal the mystery of the pronghorn?
Yes, I absolutely will, Anna. Let me I've got these bears on. I turned my light off for a moment so people could get a good look. So we get a little glare off the diorama. But there are some bears in the background. Those are brown bears. I am going to turn my light on and tell you about the pronghorn. Maybe I can see what I'm doing. There we go. All right, so get that light adjusted, and yeah, the pronghorn, I have it right here. So let's take a look. So remember, the horns usually have 1 point and antlers 2 points. Horns are the keratin over the bone. Antlers are just bone. So here we go. It's a pronghorn horn. So it has 2 points like an antler. Oh wait, it's got a sheath over the bone like a horn. Now what about the growing back part? Well, the bone stays on, but this part, the keratin sheath, is shed, and that grows back. So in other words, the pronghorn is kind of weird. It's kind of a mystery. It's almost like halfway between an antler and a horn. So that is the one that kind of bucks the trend here. And it is such a unique animal as well. I can't talk a whole lot about pronghorns because we want to have time for our bears and groundhogs, but just to let you know, the pronghorn is the second fastest land animal in the world after, some of you may know, the cheetah. So this pronghorn, this North American animal, not quite an antelope, not quite a deer, not quite antlers, not quite horns, second fastest land animal in the world, very unique creature. Definitely go research it, learn more about it yourself. I would challenge you to because it's a lot of fun. All right, So we have behind me some bears, and these are a North American species of bear. It's the Alaskan brown bear, also known as the Kodiak. They are very large bears, you can see. Try to get you, there we go. And we're gonna talk a little bit here about the animals features, the North American animals features, as far as the skulls. So I have some animal skulls here. I want everyone to chat if you have an idea. What is a feature? What is something on an animal's head, the bones in its head or the skull, and I'll get one here, that you can look at to learn more about that animal? What is something you see here as part of that skull that could give you some clues about this animal? Maybe what it is or how it lives.
There's been a lot of comments related to their teeth, their jaw, their mouth, their fangs.
Yeah, the teeth are a great thing to look at, especially as far as mammals, because teeth can be very specialized. So they can help us learn more about the animal. Another feature that I'll point out quickly are the eyes. So eyes are another great thing to look at. And even the crest are different, the sagittal crest are different features. But let's talk teeth, because a lot of people have said that, right? The teeth in the jaw. So this is a skull from a creature. I'm going to open it up. And let's see, I'm going to try really hard to get those teeth and not be too bright. It's a little difficult. People can see that. And I'm going to try to move them closer here for you, past the light, and let's see if we can get, there we go.
A little lower, Jeff. There we go.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah. If you can look at those teeth a little bit, I'm trying to get that. They look kind of, to me, they look a lot like my back teeth, my molars. And then I look at the front teeth as well. So this North American mammal, what in the world could that be? Or what could it eat? Anyone have an idea? Use those clues. So again, we see some sharp teeth in front, some flat teeth in back. It reminds me a lot of us. What do humans eat? Are we meat eaters or plant eaters?
Yeah. Somebody put that they think that this skull is an omnivore, and a lot of people are putting that people are both. We eat meat and plants.
Yep. Like us, this animal is an omnivore. It eats meat and plants, and the teeth are a great clue to that. So I think I've seen a lot of people say bear, and indeed, it's a bear skull. It's not big enough to be a big Kodiak bear, but this is a skull from a black bear, and you can see it kind of next to my skull. It really is not that huge a skull. But yeah, this is a black bear skull. Any questions, Anna?
There's been a lot of questions about the food. Like, is honey a bear's favorite food? Do they eat bugs? Do they only eat fish?
Yeah, so they, as omnivores, they eat a lot of different things. So depending on the bear and where it's at, right? Because the bear will eat what it has handy in its habitat. So let me flip around here. Excuse my quick rotation. Try not to make people dizzy, but I've got something behind me here. Anyone can see what that is? There we go. Polar bears, yes. So polar bears don't have a lot of plants available, right? So they're going to eat a lot more of the meat that's handy, like seals or things like that. Plus they're in the cold, so they have to have a lot of energy to survive. So that eating a seal with a lot of blubber is going to help them. Whereas a black bear that lives in a forest that has a lot of berries, that might find some honey, that might find little grubs and insects in a log, but also could find meat of different animals like a deer or something, they're going to have a lot of different things to eat and would be more omnivorous. And then there's some bears, well, there's one creature that's pretty much a herbivore, but it's not North American, so I won't talk too long about that, the panda. All right, so Anna, it looks like on time, I'm going to show two quick skulls, and then maybe you can answer some questions while I move to our final stop. So I just want to show everyone real quick, this is another North American animal skull. Now it's smaller, but I see those teeth in back. If you can see them up against my face a little bit, those back teeth look sharp. This looks like a meat eater, and this is, in fact, very closely related to the lynx we saw earlier. It's another type of cat with a short tail, almost like a bobtail.
Yeah, a lot of people see that and think it's a snake. It is a meat eater like a snake, so they both have a lot of pointy teeth. And then now we're getting some guesses for the bobcat, that's right.
Yeah, the bobcat. And then finally, we talked about moose. We saw deer antlers. This is a skull from that white-tailed deer, the Illinois state animal, and its back teeth are a little bit flat. Boy, this is hard to get. There we go. But they're also have some ridges for grinding up tough plants. All right, Anna, I'm going to let you get to a couple of questions because I got to move to our last stop because today, well, we have to hit this last animal.
Sure thing. So we've had a few questions about bears. Among them, is there a difference between the polar bear and the brown bear? Of course, there are a few differences. They both are different colorations on the outside. So those, as you can imagine, help them camouflage to their environments, among other things. The polar bear's fur is also designed to be really insulating because they live up north where it's very cold and full of snow. And somebody asked what the largest bear is, which it looks like Marcy is maybe typing an answer to that. I think it's the polar bear. But these are really great questions that we can also research, which is great. Another question was how many bears are in the world? Do you mean bear species or bears as individuals? Both of those are great questions. And for individuals, we probably still need to do a lot of research, right? There's sometimes things we do not know about how many animals are in the wild. So a lot of animals we're missing data on. So if you're interested in the sciences, studying wildlife is really important. So we know how many animals are in the wild. Somebody asked, what is the biggest snake? That's not a North American animal or mammal. It isn't. The anaconda is the biggest snake, I'm pretty sure. To the best of my knowledge. They're quite large. Somebody asked, would polar bears and brown bears eat each other? Not likely. They would not want to fight each other because that's a pretty dangerous animal to fight. Most animals only want to try to eat something that they're confident is going to fit in their mouth safely and be easy to hunt. So it is unlikely that those bears would ever try to eat each other. That's a lot of work.
All right. Whoops. Hey, Anna. So thanks for answering some questions. We've hit our final stop. And I'm wondering if you or Marcy have the ability to switch over to the groundhog cam.
Oh, I think Marcy can turn on the groundhog cam. Marcy is doing our technical operations. Thank you, Marcy.
And then we have a poll, I think, while we're waiting for that.
Let me launch that. So there is a wonderful animal in this world. Oh, and Marcy as the host might need to launch that poll. Let me see if I have it or not. If I can at least pull up the slide. So we have another animal we're going to talk about for this special day, but this animal goes by many, many names. And we're going to see what names you are familiar with calling this animal in the picture. Let me present this. So do you call this animal in the picture a woodchuck, a groundhog, a whistle pig, a thickwood badger, or a monax? Let us know in the chat. And I don't see a poll that I can launch, but Marcy might be able to do that as the host. Let's see. A lot of people are saying groundhog, maybe woodchuck. Woodchuck, groundhog, groundhog. Somebody's on team whistle pig. Thank you. I'm always curious where the whistle pig fans are. But groundhog and woodchuck seem to overwhelmingly be the most common responses. No. Oh, Jeff, you need to unmute your other self because we can't hear you.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, so I'm going to switch back. I gave everyone a good look with the groundhog cam here, and I apologize. Sounds like they're working on exhibits behind me. But we are going to take a look here at a couple of groundhog things. So, Marcy, if you can switch me back to the regular Jeff Schroeder cam from the groundhog cam.
And turn on your regular Jeff Schroeder cam too, I think, if you want that one on. There you go.
All right. So let's see. We've got the regular cam going. Excellent. I'm going to show off a couple groundhog articles to finish up. And then if we have any groundhog questions, we can certainly take those as well. So right here, let's see. I've got two things. We've got this. And this is the fur from a groundhog. We're going to look at that. So this groundhog, its fur is definitely not as soft as the otters, but we can see that. Now, I'm also going to show you the groundhog skull, and we've learned a little bit about skulls already. And so let's take a look at this groundhog skull and see if there's some clues there. So I'm going to try to get it up close past the light. Perfect. All right. So there's the groundhog skull. Look at those teeth. Look at those front teeth. Do those remind you of any other animals? Anyone out there want to chat it? What do those big front teeth remind you of besides just a groundhog?
Somebody said an otter, a camel, beaver, woodchuck, beaver. Yeah, a lot of votes for beaver now. Mole.
Yeah, so a beaver's a great thought. Look at those big gnawing teeth. So groundhogs are rodents. They're related to squirrels, and they would be somewhat related to beavers too, also rodents. So they have those big teeth that keep growing, and that helps them gnaw or chew through plants. All right, Anna, do we have any questions, groundhog or otherwise, to finish up with here?
See, I didn't see any groundhog specific question, but one that is adjacent. Somebody asked, do all mammals in North America hibernate, or which ones do?
Oh, good question. Yeah, certainly not all hibernate. There are some that do, some don't. So that's a great adaptive strategy to cold weather. But groundhogs most definitely do hibernate. And in fact, they are some of the deepest hibernators that we know of. Their body temperature will drop from about 97 Fahrenheit all the way down to about 34-ish Fahrenheit. So almost freezing. They're almost but not quite frozen. And groundhogs will slow, and I'm trying to remember the exact number. I don't for sure, but I think they take maybe just a couple breaths a minute, or their heartbeat's only a couple times a minute. So they are some of the deepest hibernators in North America. But yeah, there are other animals that hibernate. Some bats hibernate. There are other animals that go into kind of a torpor or almost hibernation, but not quite. Like chipmunks don't come out much. They pretty much sleep. And then other animals like coyotes are active throughout the winter, or the lynx, right? So thinking about those mammals with the fur coat, that might be a good sign that they're out in the winter. Even a weasel with a white coat.
Yeah, that's a really cool winter thing to think about. I kind of wish I could hibernate through the winter. And there were also some questions about what they eat, and among them, one of my favorites, how do I get them to stop eating the vegetables in my garden?
Oh, the groundhog? Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So to be kind to the animal and get them to stop eating. Anna, I have heard about putting like spray around the outside of the garden that has a bad smell, and then the animal smells it and it just stays away from it. So that might be a good way to do it. Of course, fencing, but groundhogs are good, really good diggers. And so that might be tough to keep them out. I would say try to use the smell, and then taste, of course, too, if there is like hot pepper or something they don't like. You know, they might not like that, but I'd want to make sure you're kind to the animal if you use things like that.
Yeah. And there were some questions about are groundhogs meat eaters? And no, they generally are going after plants, like those ones in the garden.
Yeah.
And there were some questions too about how skulls work, because they seem so detached. People have been asking if like bears or groundhogs can unhinge their jaw. Normally when we're alive, we have lots of muscles connecting our bodies. These skulls look very unhinged. When we are alive, things are much more connected.
Yeah. Great.
All right.
How are we doing here, Anna?
I think we're doing pretty good on time. I think I will do one more question. Somebody has asked if a hibernating animal can wake up immediately if danger is suddenly present.
Oh, wow. You know what? I'm not sure about that. Do you know, Anna?
I don't know, and I feel like it'd be depend on the different type of animal because like some animals like you were talking about are in these different depths of intensity in
Right.
their sleep. So, and this might be something that we need more people to research and figure out. So, new topics for the future.
Yeah. If you guys find out, let us know. But that's a good question. If they're deeper sleepers, can they wake up well or not? Wonderful. So
Yeah.
yeah. Let's talk about next week. So what do we have coming next week, Anna?
Yeah, so next week we're going to have another adventure that's all about taxidermy, how it's made, and it's going to feature the work of Carl Cotton, who was an African American taxidermist at the Field Museum, and hundreds of his animals are still on display. And so this is part of a bigger suite of Black History Month programming at the museum, which you can look for on our website. In addition to Discovery Adventures, there's other programs. We've got some scientist lectures, we've got Meet a Scientist series on Facebook Live. So definitely check out the Field Museum website for all of that awesome programming. And thank you all for joining us today on this adventure of North American mammals. I hope you all had fun.
Yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed it. Happy Groundhog Day. Our report for today, Punxsutawney Phil did see the shadow. That's supposed to be 6 more weeks of winter. However, our local groundhog by Chicago, Woodstock Willie, did not see the shadow. So that's supposed to be spring. So it's up to you, our audience, to decide. Who will you believe?
It's always hard when we're taking our weather reports from a large rodent. Thank you all for joining us on this adventure. Have fun out there. Stay safe, stay curious, and hopefully we'll see you back another week. Take care.